Hello, everyone. This morning, when I was listening to the Deep Down Place and reflecting on all that outside of us appears we're going through, reflecting on the coronavirus and being sequestered and looking at how people are so fearful. And even if they're not expressing it on the outside, you feel the energy of everyone just kind of holding that beach ball under the water and not admitting how weary and fearful they are, or they're out there overreacting to everything that appears around us. And something just made sense to me, and this morning in my reflections, in a way that I felt like, no, I'm just going to capture it and let it fall out of my mouth and see what insights might come. But it's where I was reflecting on how even if we are choosing calm, even if we are trying to be productive, even if we are struggling to release that anxiety that we're all feeling, it still is in reaction to and resistance to and fear of what's out there. And it's a reaction to the beliefs that are being shaped for us by watching the news, by seeing empty streets, by the fear of going back too soon. I mean, it's all, even if we're choosing somehow to find joy amidst the heartache, it's being shaped by the fear. And the fear has a certain energy. And we are, those of us who are looking at all of that and looking for what are the creative ways that I can minimize the fear so that then I can feel happy. It's like somehow I know we're missing a key ingredient. Many of us are, that when it changes out there, I can change in here. Or despite it not changing out there, I'm going to change in here, my feelings in here. But the feelings are still driven, reflecting against that out there, that pandemic, those people, right or left, those media people, those who are resisting going back too soon, who are wanting to go back. And then I was reflecting on, where does death fit in all of this? Death happens at the end of our human life, or so it appears. And there are deaths that happen in every moment. We make, what is it, within 7 years, you let go of dead cells and invite new ones. We become new. Right now we're witnessing spring. I heard something that made, it's like it confirmed it for me, like, oh yeah, when we go out, I think it was Eckhart Tolle, when we go out in nature and we smell the earth and we smell the smells of nature, they actually are created by the smells of decay. That we are seeing spring as part of a cycle that includes death. And I have really been looking at what are the ways that I can share about what I learned through my near-death experience, which is just one moment, one experience in time that offered insights of many that we all experience. Whether or not we've had a near-death experience, we have experienced birth, not just physical birth, but creative birth, emotional birth, relationship birth, new idea birth, and we've also experienced death. The death of a relationship, the death of the physical body we used to have, or the death that comes when you have a diagnosis that causes you to already be dead, already anticipate the death because we think of our future death. Birth and death are a part of life. From the moment we're born, we're dying. All of these things I know and want to convey, kind of pull back the focus. So when we're focusing on death, we're not focusing, we're experiencing what we experience when we experience death, but we're not staying focused there. So what came through me this morning as really important is a reflection that I had in my relationship with my mom. My mom was alcoholic, a wonderful mom, but in many ways, she was not present for me in the way that I needed her to be present. And I had this magic thing called her alcoholism that I could then blame her and say everything that in my life that wasn't happening right was because of that. And I just kind of kept periodically holding the beach ball under the water, having my calm relationship with my mom, but recognizing that it was really her fault. And somehow, and one of my complaints when I started having my own kids was that had she been a better mom, she worked both at home and worked before moms went to work outside of the home. And she worked hard. They were building a business. So she worked from sunup to after sundown to, I often didn't get to see her. And her gift to me was that my grandmother lived with us, and that could give her the peace of mind to say, well, okay, they're cared for, because she wanted to give us more than she had as a result of the Depression and her life experiences. So it took me until I had a realization when I was a parent, and to be a parent means to be a parent, to live it on the outside. What I was trying to do, what I could do is the gift of opposites. I came to this point as a parent, instead of saying, well, I don't know what to do because my mom wasn't there and she wasn't present, and I don't know how to relate to my kids because my mom always made work more important. Somehow magically there was a beginning of the turn of what I began later to call the gift of opposites. That, oh my God, because my mom was exactly who she was, I began to It wasn't in a flash, but I gradually began to see that, oh my gosh, she did the best she could do with the wiring and the experience and the way she was raised and the pains in her life and the abuses in her life. And the way she was reaching to access her sense of spirit, which was through spirit, she was doing the best she could do. And she was giving me this huge gift that if I looked at what she could not do without the judgment, I began to see the flip side. I began to see the gift of the opposite, that was actually the gift that I was looking for to receive directly from her, that she wasn't able to provide, but she was still providing it. So when, as a new mom, when I began to see, oh yeah, there are circumstances that in her reaction, she created this story around, and she was doing the best she could do given that. And that if I look at all of my judgments of her without judgments, but just looking at them and saying, oh, I want to feel more connected to my kids. And my mom, got so absorbed and focused on work that I couldn't be present for my kids, her kids. So if I looked at that and said, somewhere there's a clue that by spending more authentic time and letting work be important but pushed aside for the moment, and to seize the moment of being present with my kids, there is a gift. There is what I wanted. I get to parent myself now. When I looked and said, oh, she abused alcohol in a way that took her away from me, just like her addiction to overworking took her away from me, I could see the gift of opposites. I could say, I'm not quite exactly sure how to do it, but the essence of it is to teach my kids about addiction, to weed out my own addictions, to parent myself around addictions. So there was this awareness that I had about gifts, seeing the gift in opposites, that it became my responsibility, not as a heavy, oh, I'm doing it wrong, oh, I'm doing it right, you should, you have to. There was an element of that. But when I could just see it as an opportunity, even there is that flip of the gift of opposites, where I could see it as the burden or the criticism or the self-judgment. But instead, if I saw it as the clue, the gift, the opportunity to apply a new way, to be a part of the evolution, and recognize there's no perfect there. Whether it's through death or birth, it's a cycle. And so this morning, I know this is like the crazy rant, but this morning, I saw that as I'm so focused on wanting to create advanced directives and help people have this conversation about death that isn't from that place of fear about it or resisting it or grieving it, but somehow accessing, along with all of that, accessing that awareness that somehow buried in that is the gift of opposites, is the gift of meaning, is the gift of our evolution that can be, our energy is what we are feeling. And if we can up level our energy, every time we up level our energy, it's because we have access to new possibilities. And so, despite all of the challenges, it's the supreme test right now. Can we stay focused on the possibilities and embellish them rather than stay focused on, oh God, what is the new normal going to be? We're never going to have that. We're never going to have this. We're going to lose our jobs. We're going to be in a new depression, another depression for years and years and years. I don't know whether or not that's true, but that I know. And so if that does happen, would you rather spend your time thinking about that? Or would you rather create the new habit of planting the seed of possibility and then letting it grow, watering it, waiting for it to sprout, letting the death of it eventually be what leads to the rebirth, and seeing it as not the death that is only in the loss of that, but see it as the hope of what's to come. And so I know it's a supreme test. I know that we are all feeling fear. I know that, it's like staying in protects your autoimmune system, staying in weakens your autoimmune, all of that. It's just so easy now to focus on all of that. And I am inviting you to come with me on transforming our definition of death as that, because what we're doing with that is dying every moment, looking at the body count, looking at everything we fear, looking at, oh my God, did I touch my face? It doesn't mean you ignore that, but where in your day are you giving at least equal amounts and maybe one little bit more to the possibility that the ache of loss, the ache of death, the ache of fear is offering us the gift? And the question before us is, will we receive it? Will we have the courage to take this new little seedling of a new life and a new possibility and new realizations that will come from the death and loss of what we have known that wasn't working all that well anyway? Can we be the container, the channel, the gardener, the farmer, the creator, the nurturer of this new little seedling? We don't want to over water it or tug on its sprouts, but just even sitting hours a day looking at it and loving it and doing Dr. Emoto, look up his research on how when you love something, we're 70% to 90% water. Dr. Emoto's research was that when you looked at water under a microscope, water that you had loved and told you loved it turned into these beautiful crystals. And the water where you hated it and abused it turned into horrible shapes, nothing coherent. And worst of all, the water that you totally ignored was even worse than the water that you hated. So giving attention to joy, giving attention to possibility, allowing it. You don't have to tug on its little leaves. You just allow it. And you put your energy there. You expand your energy there. We think that if we don't think a solution to the problem there, by focusing on all of the ways it's not working, that we're not doing our work. And yet, from that place of focusing there, all of our creativity is shut off. The faucets are turned tight. It's where we can step into the possibility and see that it is good. To see that, with our nose too close to it, all we may be able to see is what appears to be a failure or what appears to be impossible. But by holding the awe of the possibility in our hands and look at death as the opportunity to access the love that we are, to use death as the reminder of rebirth, to use death as the reminder that in this human form, even though there are many, many births and deaths from our first inhale to our last exhale, this is the grand adventure that we are on. So let's make it a good one. Let's stand elbow to elbow, even though we have to do it virtually now, and stand in possibility, to look for the gift in opposites and nurture the gift. Nurture the gift. I guess that's it for now. That was just my reflection, and somehow I want all of the work all of the art, all of the courses, all of the speaking, to somehow reveal to you the authenticity of my journey of transforming fear of death to being death as a part of life, so that we can stop worrying about death and fully live life while we're in this human form. And I want playmates. Thank you.